Good evening, and welcome to Chapter 18. Remember, tomorrow we're going to be studying Chapter 19, Pricing, and I'll be using the whiteboard for that. So I'll be doing that particular video from Gamble Hall. So make sure you have your calculator ready, and you're thinking about how can we do some calculations. But tonight we're talking about is social media. And in particular, we want to take a look at the important role that social media plays in marketing. Now, many of you know this already because you're avid social media users, and you know that the best way for us to reach you is via social media. You're probably not watching television. You're definitely not reading a newspaper if you're like a typical person in your age demographic. You're highly unlikely to be listening to local radio. Magazines, now. You might notice a billboard, but whether you pay attention to it or don't know. Other outdoor advertising, also kind of shaky. Social media is where marketing is going. There's no doubt about it. If you take a look at all the major firms, whether it's Coke or AT&T or General Motors, they're all shifting their ad spends out of the traditional side and into social media. Well, why? What does social media offer? Well, again, because you're avid social media users, you probably know the answer to that. The big thing is social media makes word of mouth much simpler than it's ever been before. And better than that, it's amplified it. It's very easy for you as a consumer to put the word out about a product or a service to other consumers just by using social media, whether it's something on Instagram, something on Twitter, something you're doing on your Kik account, whatever it is you're using, you can get that media or that message out much faster than before. And as marketers, we've learned the importance of word of mouth. Word of mouth is what gives credibility to the message. And in an age where our consumers are increasingly jaded about messages coming directly from us as the marketer, we need that word of mouth to move forward. The other thing that social media allows us to do, and we talked about this a couple chapters back in communications, is for the first time ever, we as marketers can get direct feedback from our users, from our consumers. What we now have is a system where you as the consumer in real time can tell us what's going on. And that gives us a great way to listen so we can modify the product or other parts of our marketing campaign to better fit the consumer. This is totally different than before, where we throw something out and wait months to get results back. Now it's instantaneous. Marketers love social media for a couple of other reasons. The number one reason is we can measure things in far better ways than we could ever measure them before. In the old days, we'd run a survey, and when you take marketing research, we'll still get you to do this, kind of the traditional survey method. And we learn, X percent of consumers said this, Y percent said this. But now, with social media, we can track so much more information. We can track exactly when you saw the product, or exactly if you buy your product via social media through social commerce, exactly when you purchased it. We can look at what you're doing around that. Again, that gives us a much better picture of who you are as a consumer, why you buy, that consumer behavior pattern, the influences we talked about. So we have a much better sense of what's going on than we do with traditional media. And best of all, it's all in real time. We can go on at any given time and take a look. I had a student who worked for Facebook a few years ago who I was out for dinner with him, and he said, look, it's got to the point where if we really want to, we can target an ad to you at 6:15 at night because I know exactly what you'll be doing based upon all the information we have off Facebook. Now think about that from a marketing perspective. If we know the instant we can grab that consumer's attention, think how much that's going to improve our sales funnel. think how much more effective that'll make our messaging. Now, what else do we like? Well, as we've already talked about, we now have much more meaningful and direct conversations with users, consumers, than we've ever had in the past. And as marketers, we love that because that allows us to better design products, better position them in the marketplace, better at communicating our message, our pricing. Everything that we do as marketers has improved because of social media. So it's incredibly important to us. Now, the big question is, which social media do we go with? And the first thing you're going to have to do is think about who your customer is. If your customer is somebody who's in the 45 plus age demographic, you probably want to use Facebook because that's where they are. But if your target market's a 20 something, the last thing you want to do is use Facebook because that's considered to be for older consumers, that they're not part of that demographic. You probably want to use something like Instagram. And if you're targeting those tweens that we talked about back in chapter 5, you're probably using a different a different social media altogether because the tweens are looking at the 20-somethings and going, that's old. We want our own. We don't want Instagram. We want whatever is hot with a tween. So the first thing you have to do is figure out who's your target market. What social media do they like? Do they want video? And can you build the video into this? Some people just want really short cryptic text messages. And others, especially the older generation, like a lot of video. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is stop thinking about computers and social media. Most of you have a smartphone. And if we look at how smartphones are going through the population, if we look at their product life cycle, they're probably in the later stages of growth right now. We're still seeing deeper and deeper penetration, but we're probably getting ready to the point where we're going to tip over and that growth rate will slow down and we'll go into more of the maturity stage. Now, some people might argue we're already there, but that's for a different time. What you want to consider is today, when we talk about social media, we're not talking about somebody sitting at a computer. We're talking about somebody doing something on their mobile device, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a smartphone, whatever it is, because that's where we've moved to. I saw today, Google posted that the average person touches their phone something like 2,000 times a week. And if you're interested in the exact numbers, I posted them on my personal website, which is, or on my personal LinkedIn account, which is at MeNightCat. Okay, so if you're interested, text me and I'll send the information to you. A heavy user is 5,000. Think of that, 5,000 times a week they're touching their phone. Well, how many times is that per day? That's like 700 times a day. Do you touch your phone 700 times a day? I was consciously looking at it today and I'm going, you know what? I'm probably moving up towards heavy user status. I spent the vast majority of my day working off my mobile phone. And that's where the market's going. So what we need to know is, where are they using it? How are they using it? Now, earlier, I used a phrase called social commerce. And social commerce is really the combining of social media and e-commerce. And the smartphones really made that possible. Because now we look for stuff on our phone, we buy stuff on our phone, and we pay with our phone using whatever system we have. Okay? So we've really moved to that direction. As marketers, we need to be aware of that. How can we best position this product to be sold through a mobile device? How can we best position it to be, or it can be compared so we get into the evoke set when somebody's using social media? That brings us to the next point. Social media is becoming a crucial part of integrated marketing communications. Okay? We're seeing it move into areas we haven't seen of before. We've seen it moved into crowdsourcing, where people are using social media to raise money to buy products. Completely different than before. Okay? We've seen it when we take a look at how do we figure out what media type it is. Think back to that chapter 15 where we first started looking at communications, and then 16 where we looked at the media types. And even in your textbook, which is brand new, social media is still this kind of ethereal vision they have out there. It's not as concrete and succinctly looked at as the more traditional media types. We're slowly getting our heads around it, but the big thing is it keeps changing. So if we write something today, by tomorrow it's passé. We have to be careful. But it's become an increasingly large part of integrated marketing communications. And you as marketers, when you get into the field, will have to figure out how to adequately use it. One of the things you're going to be using is that listening function. And that listening function will allow you to hear your consumers in a way that people of my generation and the generation before could never dream of. We could never contemplate how you're going to be able to listen to what consumers are saying about you through social media monitoring. And as part of that, you're going to have to decide, how do you want to respond? Do you want to be like Wendy's and have something very sarcastic, which is funny, but I don't know if it's got a long-term growth to it or a long-term hold to it, because humor only takes you so far? Or do you want to do something much more serious, like we've seen with some of the airlines when they've had issues? Southwest, for example, is a great example of that. Okay. Let's talk about some social media objectives. The first objective you have in social media is listen and learn from your customer base. Listen to where they're talking about you. Listen to what they're saying. Listen to how they're saying it. Listen to who they're saying it to. Listen to where they're saying it. You want to learn as much about how they're using social media as you can before you jump in. This is just not a matter of suddenly saying, oh, I'm going to be in social media, I'm going to start throwing up tweets, or I'm going to start posting Instagram, or I'm going to start going on WhatsApp. It's not about that. It's like everything else in marketing. It's learn about the customer and figure out how you can use that information to effectively convey the message you want. So you move them, the customer, through that ADA funnel. You want to build relationships with your customer base. This is the first time where we've been able to really build relationships. We've talked about customer relationship management, okay? But we're managing something that's already there. We put in some hooks so we can try and build relationships, but now through social media, we can actually build them. So where we talk to you and where I've learned CRM, you're probably going to learn something like CRB. And that's going to be customer relationship building. And how do you do that using social media? How do you effectively communicate back and forth so that you have a fair exchange of information so that both of you feel you're benefiting? The next thing you probably want to look at with social media is use it to promote your product and services. And again, make sure you've got the right format. Make sure you're presenting it in the right way that you'll get the response you're seeking as part of your promotion. Use it to manage your reputation. Here's where social media monitoring comes in. What you want to do is make sure you're constantly monitoring what's going on so that you as the consumer, you as the marketer, not the consumer, well, the consumer as well, but you as the marketer know what's being said about you. And if it's wrong, you can address it quickly, because the longer you take to address it, the bigger it festers and the bigger the problem is going to be to clean up. Okay? The last thing you want to do is use it to improve customer service. Remember, a big part of customer service is effectively communicating what you can deliver. But more importantly, it's recovering when there's a service mistake. Social media allows you to learn when service mistakes take place and quickly recover from them by implementing a recovery process. So think about those. Listen and learn. Okay? Build relationships, promote your product, manage your reputation, and improve customer service. Those are the 5 things you want to do as an objective with social media. 5, sorry. Hang on. 5. There we go. 5. Okay. All right. How do we evaluate social media? Let me just make a quick adjustment. There we go. All right. How do we evaluate and measure social media? Well, one is through something called buzz. What are the customers saying about us? Can we track the buzz? Are people talking about us? Are we the subject of water cooler conversations, as they say? Are we seeing retweets? Well, that's perfect. That's buzz, okay? What about interest? How many fans have we got? How many clicks have we got? What are our number of likes? We're looking for that. We want to see that somebody's paying attention to what we're saying and agreeing with it in some way, shape, or form. All right? We want to take a look at the number of comments we're getting. Agreement's not enough. We need to know the comments. How strongly are they agreeing with us? And if they disagree with us, how strongly are they disagreeing? So that we can go back and correct that as part of that whole process we just talked about. All right? Where do we rank with search engines? So search engine optimization, where are we getting our results from? Are we using the right keywords? Or do we understand the algorithms? All those kind of things that we have to understand through Google Analytics or Facebook Analytics or whatever we're using, or whatever combination we're using. The next thing we want to look at is influence. How many media mentions are we getting? Has CNN picked up something we've said? Has other sources of other sites picked it up and are retweeting it? Not just our consumers, that's buzz, but other media sites, because that gives us a bigger spread. Because if we get our message spread by somebody else, we're throughout their entire network. Now, maybe half of their network is still on with us, but think about the other half we've just picked up. And for no additional cost. It's a marketer's dream that we've managed to spread it out. Okay? What's the sentiment analysis? How do people see us? Are we seen as positive? Are we seen as negative? Are we seen as neutral? How do they see us? Okay, and we can test some of those things. Part of it is we look at the comments, we look at the likes, we look at the buzz, we look at the media mentions. How are we seen? Because what we want to be seen is in a positive light. Because if we're not, we're going to have to manage our reputation. Also good use for social media if you remember back to the 5 objectives. 5. Okay, objectives. And last but not least, we take a look at our website metrics. Now, websites, in 96, websites were all the rage. Today, a website, you got to have one. It's probably where you got a lot of owned media. You put a lot of information, but it's more of a maintenance thing. It's not an active piece anymore. That's where social media comes in. Social media is active. But we want to see how many people are going to our website to look at all that information we're putting out. Because our social media is telling us we need that information. We have to prove that people are looking at it. So we look at the metrics for the website. Last but not least, let's talk about what are some of the categories of social media users. Well, in some cases, they're creators. Technically, by putting these videos together, I'm a creator of social media. Okay? Because I post these on YouTube. You can find them when you want. You can show them at your parties and laugh and go, see, this is the knob I'm taking my classes with this summer. Or you can say, geez, this is the guy I'm taking the classes with this summer. I can't believe he's posting this crap on YouTube. However you want to phrase it. But I'm a creator. You're a creator. Every time you post something, you're creating something. Okay? And we encourage you to be creative. Go out and create. Make your opinion known. Because only by making your opinion known can you become a stronger consumer. Then we've got the critics. Well, the critics are all over the place. These are the people who post comments or ratings. We need them as marketers. We need them because they often have huge follower bases. In your textbook, they talk about how Katy Perry has got something like 63 million Instagram followers or something like that. Take a look at Kim Kardashian, how many Instagram followers she has. She's a huge pipeline if you want to get your message out to the same persons, to the same people who listen to either Katy Perry or Kim Kardashian. Now, they might not be all your customer base, but if you can reach an additional 10, 20 million with a simple with them commenting on something you said or reposting it, even better, well, that's a huge boost to you, okay? But critics play an important role because they tell us where we've gone off track. They might tell us we're trying too hard, okay? So we got to dial it back a few notches. That's why if you take a look at a lot of the companies that have tried to do viral marketing have been horrible failures Because the critics look at it and go, they're trying to make a viral marketing ad. Viral marketing happens not because you try and do it explicitly, but because you do something that will hit those viral triggers. Now, as we learn more about social media, as marketers, we should be able to do viral campaigns a lot easier, but you never know. Because the consumers can always be one step ahead of us. Okay? So we've got creators, we've got critics, we've got the collectors. These are people who collect information. How many RSS feeds do you listen to? Dating myself. How many RSS feeds do you have attached to your social media accounts? If you're collecting information from news sources, from industry groups, from thought leaders, you're getting a much broader picture of what's going on in the industry and in the world itself. So we need to take a look at who are the collectors. The collectors are often important because they might be opinion leaders as well. Okay? Then we've got the joiners. Those are people who maintain a social media profile. Well, you want those people, okay? You want the joiners. You want people to join you, become evangelists for you, okay? You've got the spectators. Spectators are those who just read or listen to content and they do that, okay, they scroll by. One of those 5,000 touches a day or a week, boom, they go through. And last but not least, you've got the inactives. Okay, these are people who aren't on social media, or if they are, don't use it. They've got an account because, but they're not actually using it. Okay, they're inactive. Well, as marketers, we need to try and figure out a way, what can we do to make them active? How can we get them to become active with regards to us on social media? And then what we want to do is move them up into the critics and the creators so that they can help us get our message out. Okay, that's it for the video 1. I've posted a couple of things on social media for you to take a look at. Take a look at those and then come back and we'll talk about the back half of the chapter.